Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme TV show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinehurst Palace and from the command center, where we're distributing to this worldwide view of what we're going to talk about for the tonight, The Witcher season 1, episodes 7 and 8, and whether or not we liked it, thought it sucked, what was good, bad, and overall what we'd like to see. And of course, most importantly, is it extreme? And we're going to have some interesting comments and takes about that. My guest with me tonight is the real Dr. V. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
You sound rather apropos this evening. Just kind of meh, as it were.
I'm just a little tired, but that doesn't reflect my opinions on the show, though. I thought it was great.
Okay, well, you maybe stop sniffing some of that stuff you've got there in your prescription box and pill box, and we'll get going on this. So tonight, The
Hey,
Witcher,
hey, hey, I'm
episodes
the
7
doc.
and 8. What's that?
I'm the doctor. I can self-medicate if I want to.
Just keep a couple coins present for when we go to finish. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Eric Breen joined us in chat and he says, "Can we combine this with your Redskin report so we can talk about the zero effort?" I was going to do a Sunday Bloody Sunday special, Eric, but I was thinking about doing a Black Monday because of the firings and stuff going with the Redskins. So I'm going to do that offline because obviously I've got a tiny window going right now and it's a disaster piece. And right now, this is not disaster piece theater, it's The Witcher season 1, episode 7 8 review. So let's just get on with it. I'm avoiding it, and sometimes the only way out is through, as we like to say in psychological terms. But ultimately, I was a bit underwhelmed by these two episodes, and I'll start off by going off with episode 7. This is basically where Geralt's going to Sintra, and he's supposed to. It has to do with the law of surprise, which we just found out about an episode or two earlier. And basically, Queen C tells him, "Well, you and Destiny can just fuck off." And I thought, God, for somebody that went through all this, I guess a few episodes earlier in whatever friggin' timeline we were watching, where the daughter displayed an immense amount of magical ability, how are you such a disbeliever in all this? Because she plays the good old fashioned switcheroony between her daughter and the some peasant daughter and all that too. And I'm like, for people that we were talking about at the end of episode 1 that we kind of liked what brief screen time we had and we wanted to see more of it, when we did, were we wrong? So I just was really disappointed in all this because basically it's about, an angry woman who doesn't get what she wants and, decides to go against destiny, whether you believe that or not. And it's just kind of silly and dumb and stupid, and it doesn't feel too big. And also, Dalton, the authenticator, who was with us in a couple of these streams, had mentioned something that I wanted to bring up too, because I think it's the big crux of, that's going on in this particular episode that nobody talks about. I had mentioned before that Yennefer, I thought was the most interesting character in terms of her plot, and that she wanted to be able to have the ability to have a kid, which she had to give up for the price to pay for her to learn magic. So I understand all that. So I thought that was interesting. But he said, well, in no way do I see this show as being that sexist or racist or any of those kinds of things. And you had kind of mentioned something along those lines, Doctor. And in the moment when I ask you to give your take, we'll see exactly what you said. But I thought, no, I agreed more with you, Doctor, because, you've got a lot of ethnic characters that don't look Eastern European or European anyway. They're basically black. A lot of the male figures of the bad guys are pushed off to the side, which we'll talk about in episode 8. But here, the hypergamy aspect that Dalton was talking about that he mentioned offline to me, I thought he was going to bring up this week if he was able to be here tonight, because there's definitely what's going on. All these women are trying to trade up and they're bitching about the men, how they treat them like vessels. So you got some kind of generic hatred going on. And then you get Queen C talking like this. I was like, really? This is supposed to be building up to an epic finale of 2 episodes, and no matter what kind of cliffhangers or things that they leave open that we can look forward to in season 2, it felt very underwhelming. And the thing with Yennefer in this particular episode is she goes back to see the first guy that, one, she was literally screwing over, who was also working her, because we saw that. Istred, I believe is his name, and he's
Yeah.
grown a beard to kind of show that he's aged, whatever. Still looked like he was 12 years old. And basically, she's like, well, I'd like to go back to this old thing. And this is the classic 25 to 30-year-old girl that's been around the block and now wants to tie down a nice little good boy to, have babies with and be secure with rather than the bad boy she was out partying and having real fun with. So she's monkey branching is the term. And he blows her off and says, nah, I don't think so. But furthermore, he gives an opinion on why the Nilfgaard might be somebody to consider as not necessarily being bad because they make sure everybody's well fed and this and that and everything. Now it sounds kind of like a bunch of commies, and they are the bad guys because they're dressed in black. Okay, because the piss poor writing we've talked about rears its ugly head. But again, very underwhelmed by this particular episode. I went, huh, this is all they're trying to do. And I know you tweeted out a picture earlier that had all the episodes with the timelines and how they're really jumbled.
Mhm.
Spot on you for that. That being said, it didn't really help, I think, do anything in this particular episode. I think it left a lot hanging and not a lot of emotional climax building up to any particular scenes or points. So I'll inhale and I'll give you the floor. What do you think?
Well, these two last episodes really blended together. I can't really separate them together because it's been I watched them on Christmas,
Yes.
so it's been like 4 days. So yes, you talking about her going back to the guy. She's like, well, I'm gonna be the first guy she hooked up with when Jennifer was deformed. This guy is I'm an archaeologist, but I'm a mage too. What? I don't know. Anyway, so she goes with him, and she just and it's just funny. He turns her down. So then after that, she's rejected. And then she's like, I guess, called to go help defend the keep,
Mm-hmm.
wherever they're at, to stop the Nilfgaard from if they get a hold of this little key defensive little castle on the cliff, they'll be unstoppable. So regardlessly, she is tricked into helping them. First going back and helping them, and then yes, because some of the mages, um, actually it was the girl that she was supposed she was if you remember, Yennefer was originally supposed to go to Nilfgaard.
Yes. And she turned it
Yes,
down. So her
she turned it
backfill
down. So
position is now leading Nilfgaard for off
yeah,
an
yeah,
hour or something. Yeah.
yeah, whatever her name is, but yeah. So basically, like, well, and everybody's like, well, it's all committed voting. If she would have went to Nilfgaard, but instead, this other girl is like, well, it's for the White Flame. I'm thinking like, go smoke your crack somewhere else. I don't care about White Flame. It's like you're going after a little girl who has magic powers, so you guys can do what? Watch Haley Bob's Comets go by and drink some Kool Aid. What? It's just cult things. I hate cult things. Well, there's always a cult thing in any fantasy stuff. It's like, and they're the most evil, vile people because they justify what they're doing.
The
Is like,
secret
oh
sect.
yeah, yeah, yes. If you wouldn't understand, this is for the greater good. I'm like, how do you know that? With faith. I'm like, well, now you're just perverting religion for your own basic needs. Ah, but no,
This is
but
too easy. But it was Fringilla, who obviously up to this point was a fringe character. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but yes, we get to see more of Trish Marigold, who sadly in this in the battle didn't do much. She created a vine wall over the gate after they busted through the gate.
And didn't take two steps back to stay out of longsword
Be
range.
Yeah, and she got burned by a torch. She's on the ground. Oh, my shoulder burning. Oh, I'm like, in the games, she was more badass. Man, what a way to this writer character being, and it's like a total joke. Because we first meet her when in the earlier episodes where the princess was cursed, and
Yes.
that's where Gerald had acquired. She acquired Gerald's help to help cure the princess, save her. That's why for So it's interesting to see her as like a just a shell of her character in this whole entire series. I hope they really like up her ante, as far as like her being a much more formidable
Mm-hmm.
foe. But man, I don't know. I'll just say this: I hope Eric is washing his dishes since he likes to do that. Listen to streams.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Parallel
sorry.
tasking, bro. That's what we call it in a manufacturing environment.
I mean, at least something will be getting done, because this series is like it's frustrating to no end towards the end. It's just like okay, the only good part is you get the where you finally it's like it took like 8 episodes, like basically 8 hours. If you think about it, because you use an hour. So basically, it took 8 hours for Geralt to be like, "Hey, what's up, Siri?" And they hug.
Well, let's back up a little bit before we get to that near final scene of episode 8. So, to me, for episode 8, before I could just do some meta stuff, is that like you could argue, again, continuing, oh, Gerald's not even a main part of this episode, so they're writing, men out not to be, pertinent to the narrative, technically speaking, which which I've said before, when he's a side character and not necessarily the main thing, but just stuff revolves around him and we don't have to spend that much time on him, I don't think it's a bad episode or show. And I'm thinking of some of the ones with the Bard earlier with him, but to me, I didn't have a problem with it. Although some would argue that it's all about women and their power, and all about them and men are irrelevant, and it's their fight for equality. If you want to take it that way, I'm kind of a little pissy with the show. That's why I'm kind of venting on it a little bit in this manner because again, I thought it would have a little bit of some Eastern European philosophical type things to it, or maybe it'd be a little nihilistic, if you want to call it that. Not necessarily American. I'm not expecting that, but it just seems like this is very start turning into PC with what's going on, and all the switcheroos are by old white guys, and it's just like. Really? But all the trouble's caused by women who don't get what they want because they feel butthurt about something because I can't have a baby even though I knew what the price was before I made the decision in a sober manner, or like Queen C we mentioned before. And so I'm looking at this going, really? So to me, what I did like about episode 8 and actually thought they did really well and actually had the seeds of something fantastic was not just Geralt not being on screen, but I had no problems with it with a small group of like 20 or so mages trying to hold off this big, huge army, which I don't know how big it was supposed to be. I don't think we got a good view of it. I think a lot of the big shots weren't very good, but the set pieces and stuff, it still did a decent job of conveying this war where basically they're trying to hold off, the bad people from going from point A to point B. And of course, the immediately thought was, okay, this is going to be where they show us a place of where they're at, and they have the bridge, which is the only possible place from A to B. And despite all the power we're going to see, or we know that they have currently before they display it, they don't even bother sabotaging the bridge so they can't cross. I let that little piece of stupidity or big piece go out the window. I checked my brain. But there were some interesting uses of magic with the fight that I thought was neat. I liked how they did a little bit of like sniping from their end, and we didn't know what they could do with their magic. Like when they threw the blue rocks out, and then they would
They're
magically snipe them, and they turned into like shrapnels, bombs. Or the thing that I thought was really cool, and I thought, damn it, that's the coolest idea that I've seen in this entire 8 hours so far, is when the one mage snuck and grew those mushrooms that ended up being poisonous. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Somebody that
yeah,
specializes in that stuff. I thought this is what the show could really be about, and that was really about the best scene. So it was a mixed bag to me, and of course you get Yennefer getting the pat on the old shoulder from resting bitch face boss, and she of course goes nuclear, and that's the big thing. It's like, okay, why didn't you do that before? I mean, it was just very by the numbers. It wasn't very exciting. I thought it had a decent tempo and it wasn't over the top. And I thought if it was very subtle the way they did some of that stuff and creative like that, that would have been a good way to differentiate yourself from just being a spot fest that like Game of Thrones and other shows would be. Before I get into some other details, what do you think about all that?
well, that was actually Trish who do, if I remember correctly, they did the mushroom thing. So they grew it, they grew spores, and that poisoned the troops as they're coming.
Hmm.
So she did do that, other than the vine wall. So I take back my statement. I add that to it. So she was somewhat useful.
Made
um,
one, missed one, just cut off the team.
yeah, I mean, like this is the whole battle, epic battle. And where's Gerald? I'm hallucinating. Mama, is that you? He's in the back of the cart.
Mama did love me. Oh wait, God, how could I
Mama
have
left
forgotten the
me.
single mom angle? Interesting. And did you
Single
catch the
mother.
gold dragon in it too?
Yes. I mean, he got bit by those creatures that basically feed on. Basically, what it was, we got a throwback to the episode where Siri was staying with those people who had fled after Nilfgaard attacked,
Yes.
where the dwarf killed the noblewoman.
Hmm.
So all those bodies were left over. So as Gerald is making his way through there, he came across a guy who's like a farmer. He's like he felt bad because well, you know, all these bodies laying there. He was gonna bury them, give them proper burials. And Gerald's like, well, dude, you can't do that. It's too late. There's already creatures here, creatures that feed on their corpses, and they come out of the ground. And him being a mutant saved his life because he's able to. He has healing properties.
Yep.
Because otherwise it would just kill you. So, but it did have a side effect where he basically got started hallucinating and he's slipping in unconscious. The guy said like, dude, it's like you got to stay awake. It's like basically like alcohol poisoning. If you're that drunk, the best thing is for you to stay awake because you don't know what's going to happen. You may not wake up. But yeah,
I actually like
yeah,
that angle. Him
yeah.
not being in there and being with the farmer, and the farmer's trying to do the right thing, and he's a human. I liked it.
Well, the reason they did that is because that's what leads him to Siri. Because Siri was staying with that lady that
Yep,
helped out Siri. That's her husband.
that's right.
Yeah. So it says remember, fate. It brings you together. Destiny. Whether you want to, you can't escape it. You'll draw you right together. So so they're setting up where he's finally gonna meet Siri, and then Siri had already left in the woods after he got right in the wagon there, and Siri he was like, wait, there was a woman here, like little girl. And so he quickly runs into the woods, looks around, and the next thing you know, you see Siri like it's one of those cheesy romance things, and like she's running slow motion, galloping, running towards him. I'm
Like
like,
a puppy.
yeah, puppy running towards golden retriever running towards the owner, and then they hug and embrace, and then that's it. Like,
Yeah, it was like watching a Hallmark thing, but not nearly as sexy. And I'm looking at this going, okay, Bo Derek did it on the beach. They're doing it here. I'm like, somehow this reminded me of an old book way back in the day that was really popular that I think it was the cover, and of course covers change with different prints and editions. But I kept thinking, this cover reminds me of Where the Red Fern Grows. I mean, that's all I kept thinking of, and I didn't hate them getting together, but I was underwhelmed. And this is where I think what overall, as we start talking some of the big themes here, was a disservice to the show and the potency of the things they were trying to do is the jumbled timelines. And I get that they wanted to start and go circular and go backwards and end up where you're at, and that seems to be the structure that a lot of people like to do to make it sound like you're cool and you're hip. And frankly, it's overused, it's tiring. I think it's a gimmick that writers try to do to make it seem like they're doing something well. But to go back to what you mentioned at the beginning of the episode when Geralt gets injured and he saves the farmer from the bad guys, and then he in turn saves him, is okay. It's a nice vehicle for him to literally be injured so he doesn't have to do anything for an episode. Maybe show that he's incompetent because instead of running off like he should have, he stayed. Whatever. Kind of goes against some of the way he was
yeah,
portrayed earlier. These
it
creatures
was
that came out almost looked decent, where some looked stupid before, but the problem is there's no build up. And if in the first episode or two, when we saw this with Siri leaving, if they'd made a comment like, oh, we last saw her running across the fields of blah, 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 that implied something dark and ominous, so then maybe there's a callback to it here in this episode with these creatures. It might have a little bit of weight behind it. I mean, this is in wrestling terms the job squad coming out. You don't even know who they are. They're just some schmo that is going to go 30 seconds of Braun Strowman before they turn him into a gimmick. And it's like, it was just underwhelming, and I just thought for a magical world that you're trying to world build, that's not really been done. You don't really get a lot of visual interpretations of the different areas of the continent or continents that this is supposed to be on. You don't get a sense of history or how rare some of these creatures are, other than Garrett going, he's been around a long time. I mean, it's like, okay, you're starting to try to do the Punisher, but it's like, I don't
yeah.
know. I did not hate this whole thing as bad as it sounds. I'm just saying it's frustrating because there were some things I liked about it. I think it wasn't bad. I think there's a lot of okay ingredients in here that, when put together and done right, maybe in the hands of a seasoned veteran, it could be really, really, really good. And right now, it's just like white rice sitting there, and it's like, well, did you want to make it sticky? Did you want to make it crunchy? Did you want to add some flavor? Did you want to put the cardamom pods in there? What did you want to do with it? And they never got to that decision with it. So I don't know. For me, that was the biggest frustrating thing for the whole season is the timelines and the lack of build up that didn't occur because of that, primarily with some of these things here. What about you? What's your biggest negative before we go on to the positives?
the like I said, the only biggest thing that I had was him hallucinating and this whole thing. Not because he was on a fight. It's just that we didn't need to know why he probably became the Witcher. I mean, if they were gonna do it, they should have said anyway. Well, I know I didn't have a choice either. Or when he's talking to Yennefer, they should have brought it up. He should have explained it. Instead, we get this flashback like 2 episodes later. It's like, oh, this is why he was became a Witcher because his mama didn't love him.
It
She
is.
drove off. She
Single
dropped him.
mom,
He
they
went.
probably sold him off, to get some more money so she could go out and booze it up and, still be a single mom. I mean, that's what it seems like. It's like, and even if they wanted to show that to us, the question would be is, And that moment is the right time. No, they just dangled something in front of you to promise what they might try to do in the next season because they really had no idea what the hell they were doing. That's what it felt like to me.
It was just so funny. It's like this is like the plot to Shazam. His mom left him in a crowd, didn't want him.
Really, I don't
She's
know.
like,
I didn't see
she's like,
it.
cause in Shazam, that was the whole thing. They were out shopping, and he got cut off. For they're holding hands. He stopped for something, picked something up, and then he looked around. She's gone. She left. She fled. She didn't want him. She couldn't take care of him, so she hoped that somebody else would take care of him.
I
I was
bet
like,
I bet
what?
you these single women are behind a lot of these animals being left alone by themselves too, because you do it with the kid, you can probably do it with the
like,
puppy, and that's
like,
just not right. There's just nothing right.
like, like literally in The Witcher, his you see in the flashback, his mom's like is like, here, go fetch me some water from that stream. As she walks away from the wagon, he goes after he gets water. He's like, look, mom, I got the water pail, mama.
Yeah,
And
you little bitch.
she ran, she she took the wagon and left. So as he's hallucinating all stuff, the guy is like, stay with me, keep your eyes open, whatever, blah blah blah, And he's going in out, and he starts seeing his ex's mom again. After we see that stuff, he sees his mom, and he's asking her, "Why did you do this?" And she's like, "It's not important, whatever." You know, and like, yeah, it's like it's. I didn't need that. I don't care. He's the Witcher. I don't care about his past. You know,
Let's take a
like
moment, a silent
like
moment, and let's all have a thought and a prayer while I quickly hit the button to tell you what grade I would give the writers of this show.
0.0.
0.0. Because again, you take something that everybody was kind of geeking out about, looking forward to, regardless of the casting or the acting. I think if we go back to the episode one, and we started talking about the show, we thought it would be fun to do, and it kind of actually has been. But for me, I look at it and go, I don't care that Henry Cavill's in it. Handsome Henry Cavill, I thought he was okay. But my biggest thing that I think I said at the time at the end of the first episode was, for me, I don't know after this first episode if it's very clear if they're trying to be adult dark fantasy or the monster of the week kind of show. And I think they still don't know. So I will say this, what I liked about it. I liked Yennefer's potential story about something positive. She wants to have a kid and she's willing to figure out a way to do it. She's on a personal quest. We understand what that is. We can see how that might influence her decision making in certain things. You understand her female nature with the monkey branching and the hypergamous nature of her and all that too. That's just a typical woman. No problem there at all. Um, that being said, I still think the funnest character, maybe not the most interesting one, is the Bard and his silly little song about, a coin of the Witcher and all that stuff. He was a comic relief who wasn't just a complete sideshow idiot. So when those two are together, I thought, for whatever reason, it almost works better when they're just kind of like buddy cops going and doing their thing and getting entangled in adventures. Which brings me up to the classic Xtreme TV portion of this that I've been saving for the entire 8 episodes is this. Back in the 70s, one of the first shows I remember watching was something called, believe it or not, believe it
Starsky and Hutch.
or not, even better, because I think that was early 70s. It was the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries with Sean Cassidy and Parker Stevenson, one of my favorite all time shows that we may one day review here because TJ Hooker somebody already bothered to do, and I'm disappointed in that, although it's a good podcast. What they would do in Hardy Boys Nancy Drew is one week would be the Hardy Boys, the next week would be Nancy Drew. And they would alternate, and then they would have one or two crossovers where they would somehow get involved, but it was of course in the same timeline. There's no bounce around nonsense. And usually the way the television season worked, it might have been like a Halloween special or Christmas or something along those lines. And as campy and as dorky as it is, it worked. And there was a lot of episodic TV back in the 60s and 70s. I've mentioned The Fugitive, I've mentioned The Invaders from Mars, Quinn Martin things, canon. And then you have your buddy stuff, like a lot of cop shows that where this kind of works. I know we talked about canon before, TJ Hooker and a few others, Miami Vice. You can stick with a structure and play with a little bit, but as long as you stay with that structure, people know what you're going to get. It's a lot easier to get emotionally invested in it. And that's the problem I think this show had is unless they were doing the buddy cop thing, do you really give a rat's ass about any of these characters? And I think honestly, the answer is no. And I don't think it's because of them or they acted them bad or someone like me that doesn't know the source material. It's the writers. It was horrible. And you could talk about a new director and how they make mistakes and how you can grow. Their budget was bigger than Game of Thrones for that first season, I believe. And it still looks like something you would find on Chiller or Sci-Fi. I mean, it just was pretty bad. But overall, it wasn't offensive. I think they were trying to do something with it. I'd give them a couple more episodes in season 2, but if it stays the same, gonna cut it off. It's gonna be a 1, 2, 3 or the King Kong Bundy 5 count and it's out. So I don't know. We'll see. It's honestly, it's not that good. It's okay. It's meh, but there's much worse out there. So by default, like we'll talk about later tonight on 2019's top 10, there's a lot of garbage. So by default, some
Yeah.
things just perk up to the surface. But overall, I did like some stuff with it. I was mildly entertained in spots, mostly because of the bard.
Yeah. And speaking of Bard, his song "Toss a Coin to your Witcher." One of the lyrics he had was kind of a Christmas thing. He said, "Thrust every elf far back on the shelf, high up on the mountain." What was a kid? Elf on the shelf.
We had that on a couple of days ago or like that, and my wife, who's teaches young kids and all that, they do the Elf on the Shelf thing, and she's like, "Were they just talking about Elf on the Shelf?" And I went, "What?" And I rewound it. I was like, "Yeah, I think that's like a little Easter egg where if you're not paying attention, you would miss it." That was cute. That was funny. It's a shame that when the Elf on the Shelf is one of the highlights of The Witcher that we're talking about after 8 hours and 8 episodes. I don't know. So, where would you like this to go in season 2? Because I think it won't be until
It's,
early 2021 that it drops. I
yeah.
think they're going to start filming season 2 in
Well,
early 2020.
if they keep it close to more of the games, series are very integral part of the series. So it's going to focus more on Siri than anything else. Yennefer is going to have to team up with Geralt in
Hmm.
order to stop, because this is a world-ending event that these guys want to do. If they're going to follow the books in the game, and let it will, because hopefully, because the only problem when people do TV series, they scrap the source materials a little bit, and then they just are like, "Well, we're going to go a different direction." I'm like, no. um, yeah, I want to see more of Gerald or Geralt. I guess if it's Gerald, I think it's Geralt. Geralt,
I
yes,
say
Geralt.
Gerald because back in the day, there's a group. Gerald Levert was a singer, and on the
Yeah,
R&B, and nobody
uh,
would know that reference, so I just say Gerald.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's pronounced Geralt though. I obviously I want to see the Bard come back. He told, because you saw him how he yelled at the Bard. He says, "Oh, your fault. All this trouble." He blames him because, well, the Bard. If you never would have got the Bard, he never would have went to um the not the wedding, but but the court where they met the queen when Siri's grandmother never would have
Yeah.
stopped everything. He never got promised to have met Siri and all that stuff when she's born. But if you think about it, it's like the Bard is what's causing the end of the world.
Some people would argue that, or you could argue that Gerald's the more he started this episode, till now he's turning a little
But
bit of a bitch
I
or
want to,
whatever, because
but
he's blaming everybody else for it.
but I want to touch more on what really happened to Siri's mother. They said that they were on a ship and the ship went down. It sunk.
Hmm.
Did Nifgard go after them? Because remember, she's got the same powers as her mother. Did they try to use her? Did they kill themselves? Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
mean,
wanted to touch more on that. Dude, I want there to be more monsters, more dragons. I want In the game. There's actually a griffin you have
mhm.
to fight against. Um, I want, just I said, I want, I'm not, I just want, I don't want to end up being like Godzilla, where it's all about the people and then there's no monsters. Come
Yeah, they,
on,
they introduced a lot of characters, and I don't have a problem with that as long as I know what their function is, that they're going to be important, that you see some growth, and some you're not going to like, some you're going to identify with, some are not, some you might not like until something happens and then you might like them. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with sticking with them, but if it's the crappy ass Walking Dead where you see somebody for a season, they don't do anything, then they do one thing, and then they die, and you're like, well, what's the whole point? I mean, I get that those things happen, but it just seems like it's a convenient way to write stuff in. And for me, I just, if they're going to be filming here in early 2020, they pretty much, I think, already have an idea of what they want to do and have it fleshed out. But the way of course, these products are being put together today with big corporations and teams of writers rather than one person being in charge. And I think teams are bullshit. You have somebody that's supposed to be responsible for it. And they just say, no, this is the direction. This is what we're going with. Get the hell out of here. I don't care what your internal polling says and your data and all that. That's nonsense. Anybody that has a particular vision is going to be able to leave their fingerprints on it for better or for worse, but at least it'll be clear on what they're trying to do. And here I just felt
Yes.
like it's just paint by numbers. You can have different people directing different episodes, or even writers writing different things, or teams of them. I don't think that's a good way to do it. If you're doing an anthology thing where they're not related and you have 5 or 6 episodes in a special series, that's different. And that's why everybody was mad at Halloween 3 that we mentioned before, because they didn't realize that's what it
Yeah.
should be. And then here, I just go, make a decision on what you want to be and be committed to it, because I did not feel that. And that's one thing that I hate in any particular show or movie that comes out. If you are not committed, don't even bother. If you suck and you're committed, at least I can follow you. But when you just try to play it safe and throw stuff out there, a little magic here and there with no explanation, a little bit of monsters here and there, a little bit of a scene shift here and there, a little indoor outdoor shot, any monkey could put that together. And with the budget you've got, there's no excuse for the writing to be this piss poor. So it's ultimately, again, average, I'd say at best, but for Netflix, that means it automatically goes into the B plus or higher category. Um,
I mean, take advantage of it. You have Netflix. You're not on public television. You can do what pretty much more on Netflix than you can on television. Um, you don't have to worry about the FCC or whatever it's called. Yeah. You could do it. So if they're gonna do this for season 2, they have to bring in Kier Morn. Kier Morn is the school where Geralt went, where they created the Witchers.
mhm.
I want him to go back there and I want him to train Siri how to fight, how to use her powers. You know,
Well, let me ask you this. I like to joke and bang on the millennials and the younger group, which we do have an extensive younger audience, which I think is cool. And I always like to talk about the 80s being the best decade, and the guys our age and older that are fans of the show talk about the 70s and 80s. I always like to hear the millennials' perspective. So let me ask you this. In your opinion, why do you think millennials in general that seem to really be hyped for this show, why do you think they really were interested in it before it came on?
as far as the show, well, if you grew up playing the games or maybe read the books, this is basically your fantasy. Like here it's the guy who's total badass, goes in, he just it, the way I describe it would be like Gerald is to them is what people growing up and you're reading the Punisher books. Gerald does not fall under any man's law. He's outcast. People look down on him. He's able to work outside the system, and
He's no Bruce
and people
Banner.
no. No, no, he's not. Yeah, he doesn't. He's not like that. He's not like the flower. Like, oh, I can't have sex, so I'll turn into a giant. No, huh, no, he can have sex as much as he wants. He just can't get anyone pregnant. And that's like some people are like, dude, like that's kind of cool. you know, as far as as I said, like people, if you play the Witcher games, you love being able to take on monsters. You have the powers. It's just the lore. If you can go to taverns in the game, you can interact with the people in there. Um, you get especially Witcher 3. You got the experience really up close, like the hate people had just for your character. It's like his best friend was Roach,
Yeah.
his and his horse. So but he go in there. This is plus the songs. The Bard, not the Bard is one of the songs, but then there's so many different songs throughout the game. Um, so
Well, let's steer this a little bit in the millennial kind of point of view that I'm asking you to guess on. Jay had mentioned there in chat something I was thinking about too, which I'd like to clarify. He talks about there's the game versus the source material, and to me, I've said from the beginning when we were reviewing this that I'm going in as the casual watcher. Somebody said, "Oh, Henry Cavill, let me put my eyes on that. Let's see what it is." And so maybe I don't know the PC game. I played it a little bit, so
no.
I'm not gonna remember it. But do you
Well,
think that stuff's really that important to millennials? Oh my God, it's got to be just like the books or the game. I mean, what do you think happens
well,
there?
the way that the people are a fan of the books, a lot of people, if you read the books and then you go to see the movie, and then the movie's like shit. Yeah, of course you're gonna love you want it to be all these books. If they're gonna do a Spider-Man comic, I want it to be actually like Spider-Man. I don't want Tom Holland Iron Boy. I don't want this where they just change things, go like, well, this doesn't work. We're gonna do this. It's like because it comes down to legal rights. Sometimes they can't. They don't have
Right.
full rights to characters. But I also want. I don't want like say they do reboot a TJ Hooker. And then we're just gonna change everything about it. We're gonna turn it into a comedy.
I know. TJ Hooker had some
Um,
dark stuff, despite its 80s cheesiness factor.
I mean, you watched. I don't know if you're a fan of the original Starsky and Hutch. If that was one of your main shows to watch, I'm sure some people were offended when they saw they did Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson did a reboot, made fun of it the whole entire movie. Um, it's just like I said, like Jay's read the books. I've played the game. I never read the books, so I mean, he's saying this is based on the books, so it might be different from the game. I don't know how much different, but I liked in the game where he trained Siri. And every time I say Siri, I think I'm like Siri, look up this.
Siri, why does The Witcher suck? Um, Look, I know I'm ragging on it, but it's an okay show. I mean, I think it just could have been a lot better, and not knowing the source material over the game versus the books, it's hard for me to judge if millennials in general, or who I'm imagining are the majority of the audience, because we don't know, because Netflix won't share, and you can't believe them. I'm sure they lie about their numbers. It's going to be a raging success, 9 out of 10, and all that stupid stuff they pay shows for. But we don't do that here on the Extreme Movie Show. Our opinions are exclusively our own and not influenced by anybody else, unless you slip me a lot of money under the table, allegedly. Um, but really, I don't know if I'll read the books before season two, but I did want to say, for a show that I think's average or fairly decent, let me ask you, what would be the one thing that you thought was great and outstanding about this entire thing, besides the Bard, that you'd say, you know what, go watch it and look through it through this lens here? In other words, if you had to justify why somebody should watch it, they should watch it because
Well, I mean, the pervy side of me says like there's a lot of great tits in this. No,
the
the
boobies are very
magic.
clean. They're not sweaty at
Yes,
all.
yes. Uh, no, no. Like I said, the magic. Just the traveling. Thing. Just, I'd say yeah, but the magic here there's not so much, but just Henry Cavill's performance as the Witcher is spot on. It's like I almost because if you played the game like Witcher 3, I'm like, wait, did he do the voice acting for that character as well too? In there, like, no, but he matches it though pretty well. Uh, just the whole idea of this whole thing. This is your fantasy. Like this is your dark ages, your kind of medieval times. Uh, it's not woke. It's not like propaganda pushing it down your throat. Like, well, if you don't like, you need to do it like this. It's not a Mary Sue story. You know, the dude has sex. He's allowed to have sex.
Yeah,
Keep
well,
her.
and what we did
I
find the
can't.
moral of the story is when you have sex, that cures insomnia, and so at least we learned one thing from this, from season one. So let me ask you this, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Would you rather it be a more serious, grittier, guttier, darker adult fantasy where everybody's dirty, ugly, sweaty, and diseased and all that other stuff that's reality, or do you want it to be more of the lighthearted bard, a companion monster of the week type show with a few occasional
Well,
longer term angles?
I I want a healthy balance of both. I want him to do what they did in the very first scene, the very first episode where he's facing the monster. After that, they didn't show him facing any monsters.
Sure.
Um, I mean, cut that crap out. That's the whole thing that drew me to the whole series. Is like he's taking on monsters, he's getting bloody, he's getting guts over him. It's like that's what he is. Don't cut that out and like just give me the sappy romance stuff. I don't want that, dude. Like, let him be badass. You know,
Release the
you have to cut.
hounds.
Yeah, pretty
Unleash
much.
the beast. Yeah.
Unleash the Kraken. I mean,
Drop the kids off the pool.
I mean, at least didn't you get that? Weren't you kind of disappointed? Like you saw the first episode of when you show him that he's in the swamp battling that monster, and then whenever they showed another monster, they didn't. They
Yeah.
just showed him coming out, and he like, oh, like when the guys were gonna steal his stuff when he's in the bar, he's like, don't do that. and he comes out, he's holding the head. I'm like, I wanted to see that fight.
Yeah. And wouldn't it have been cool if they just went like 15 minutes and there's no talking and they just exhausted you to death and did something totally different as a gimmick to start the entire episode? That's what I thought too. I was like, what? I'm underwhelmed.
Like,
I didn't
yeah,
care that he looked like a giant crab and it was almost laughable and I didn't know whether it should be funny or not. But
no,
if you went
no,
like 10, 15 minutes and there was no talking and you drew me in that way, oh hell, that would automatically
I
give write you a pass for the entire season. You know, if you had a cool opening, you got to hook people at the beginning.
you gotta open up the floodgates, make it more like Ash versus Evil Dead, you know, not comedy, but more like when he cuts something, hey, the blood sprays at him and his face covers him, you know, where he's, you know, make it more gory. Well, it can't be family friendly. It's not meant for families. There's freaking nudity in it. You're gonna make this shit 21 plus. Come on,
Okay.
you know. I don't care about the sex. I just want more him. This more gore. I want him just cutting things off and just maybe getting injured. More suspense. To me, it's just been him. I'm walking. I'm walking. Oh, hey, what's up, Siri? Don't turn into Lord of the Rings. Let there be, let there
Siri,
be
why
actually
is everybody
action.
crying? Everybody is crying in The Witcher because they have no moral family values. I mean, it's like, come on, guys, give me something. What I want is I want to build up. I want to know why I'm supposed to care about a character. I don't want them dicking around with timelines. And I could go either way. I'd prefer Dark personally. I think they've been more effective when they've been more monster of the week, and sometimes you can do that and drag something on. I've said you can make an entire season or a 3 or 4 episode arc that starts and begins. You know, say episode 2 ends at 5, start another one at 5 that ends at 8, overlap a few things. I think they have a nice vehicle to do this. I do appreciate the fact that even though a lot of money was spent on it, and I don't think it shows, I do appreciate the fact that it looks okay in some spots, really good, although some spots look bad. So I think they just need to really clean up their act, and I hope that with enough good things that we've seen there, that they're able to go, you know what, we're going to get better, not by necessarily doing things different, but what we're going to do is get better by cutting out some of the fat, you know, trim it, get rid of some stuff, realize, okay, this didn't do well, this didn't do well, okay, so if we just did this and do it different, that's fine. And a lot of times with a song or movie, you know, we always talk about how we don't haven't really talked about an extreme movie show, but we've mentioned how we like certain people. But the thing is a lot of the stuff's made in the editing room, and if you lack that vision because your vision is made by committee, it's hard to sit there and say in the editing room, okay, why are we showing this? We're showing this particular scene because we want to emphasize this. When you go, oh, it'd be cool to have a monster here. We're going to make it look different than the last one and this and that. And it's this committee stuff, and they just, you know, paint by numbers, pull something out of a book. That's garbage. And if they do that in season 2, they're going to be on the fast track for getting canceled by the third season, which is what Netflix does anyway. It's a super expensive show, which means it probably won't have a long shelf life anyway. So at least we'll get a second season out of it. So when it comes, I do expect us to watch and we'll probably review it as well. But yeah, it's not bad, but boy, it could have been so much more. And that's the tantalizing thing about it, where some shows are just complete duds. Eric Breen is saying T.J. Hooker was a comedy show.
Was
I'm
it?
just, what's that,
I thought it was more
Eric?
serious because this just made fun of the whole entire like series. That movie.
Yeah, yeah.
T.J. Hooker was more comedy. The
It,
guy running after the one scene where the guy cops chasing the villain and
again,
he falls.
it's silly. It's practical effects. But when you hear all the subject matter, this is the thing about the '80s that I've mentioned with Angleton, because I always say he's got the rose-colored glasses, and I've always said, well, he likes everything, and he does. And I'm the opposite. I almost don't like anything, and the stuff I like, I really do like. So that's where, you know, we've had this friendship for a long time where we've debated these things, and I've said, look, you could take something that is so horrible, but you could find something good in it. And to me, it's almost the opposite. And in the '80s, the trick is if you didn't grow up in the '80s, and we talked about this with Stranger Things and other shows, slapping stuff together in the '80s does not make it '80s. The '80s was the best decade in terms of having some really dark, you know, adult material presented to you in such a saccharine, sugary way that you would miss it and you would feel all warm and fuzzy about it. And life was positive and everything was great, but in reality, it wasn't. And I give you no more evidence than Bill Cosby. I mean, he was America's dad, and people can joke about it. The guy had been around since the 70s. There's no whispers of any of that kind of stuff. We all know what happened with him, but he was that guy in a sweater, and there was all this wholesomeness image when the reality wasn't that way. One of the last T.J. Hooker podcasts I was listening to was called The Cheerleader Mirrors, which is dumb, but it's about trafficking in underage girls, getting them addicted to coke, and then the guy whacking them, and he needs his guy to go get them so he can film them and ship them out to the Eastern Syndicate over in the Philippines and this and that. And you get this like in the first 2 minutes. Plus, I think Romano's running around with a shotgun, getting ready to blow somebody up, and it's like, yeah, I'll take the Shatner, doing the stupid roles and everything else that people like to make fun of, but you'd get that in 5 minutes in an 80s cop show, or even the 70s was a bit grittier. And so some people would argue the 70s was even better. I think the 80s has a lot of fluff to it, but at least you knew what you were getting, and they would do that. They wouldn't even touch something like that. TJ Hooker was taken before Liam Neeson came around. I'm just saying. As O.J. Simpson would say at the end of all his tweets, I'm just saying.
Just saying, bro. Just
Yeah.
saying.
All right, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. Jay's talking about boxing, fighting, something. I don't really know Jay's background, but middle heavyweight title, so I'm assuming throwing the fisticuffs as opposed to tickling the ivories. Good luck, although you don't need luck because you're good, so whatever. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, all that kind of stuff. Fitzmagic went off today. I was thinking of you. I was thinking of the whole Irish thing. And I thought of The Witcher, and I thought, well, let's finish it strong.
Yeah. He's also saying he wants to go down to lightweight. Are you gonna stop drinking alcohol? I mean, that does put on pounds.
Eh, it's sugar. He'll lose all that weight.
Sugar.
Yeah, it's just cutting and bulking. That's all it is. I mean, he knows his routine. Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for showing up. Be looking forward to doing some more TV type reviews with you guys. We wanted to try a TV show out to see how it would go because the Extreme Movie Show covers movies, but there's a lot of different areas that we've been working on. So we're going to experiment a little bit further as we go on too. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just having a great fun year. It's been pretty enjoyable. We've been getting more viewers, more subscribers. That's awesome. We've got quite a range of audience. So I've been pretty, I feel, fortunate at the past 8, 9, 10 months that we've been doing this a little bit, where we've just discovered doing some stuff and having fun. So, take it to the next level this next year as well. Stay extreme, guys. Bang! Toodles. Au
Auf
revoir.
Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Good night, guys. HTTR.